And speaking of Native Americans, that's where Bert Hellinger got most of his insights from, observing the Zulu tribes in Africa, right?
Yes, and they honor their ancestors. Never spoke a negative word to any of their parents. And he found that quite interesting, coming from the Western culture
Right.
where we don't do that so much. Right?
No, especially in the US, there's a big tendency to badmouth our parents and just sort of blame them for all the things that are wrong in our lives, how they didn't raise us right. It almost becomes a cultural norm to mock that, right?
Well, and in the 1990s, there was a book called The Toxic Parents, and they told you to stay away from your parents.
Oh wow.
It was terrible. And I'm reading all of this stuff, and on some level, it doesn't feel right. And then I met Bert Hellinger, and he's telling you to turn around and embrace your parents. It's
Right.
like, whoa.
And there's something incredibly revolutionary in Bert's work about turning around and embracing our parents, which includes not even forgiving them, because as a child,
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
the mere notion or attitude that you have that you're entitled to forgive your parents is arrogant to begin with, right?
Absolutely.
Could you speak a little more about that, please?
Yes. In every form of religion, forgiveness is a big deal, right?
Right.
They talk about it. You're supposed to turn the other cheek, and when Bert first talked about it, he said, no, 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 no. You say, I forgive you, and you be the one that's forgiven. And what we watched was the person who was forgiving became bigger and better than, really puffed up their energy.
Superior.
I'm better than you, right? And what you really want is equal to equal, adult to adult human beings. And so rather than saying, I forgive you, it's better to say, I agree to it, because that's coming adult to adult. Okay? Whatever happened, I agree to it because it
I
happened.
agree to it. Right. So it's not only between parents and children, but also between siblings and
And
past
partners.
spouses
Hmm.
and partners, right?
And current partners, you
And
know?
current
I
partners.
mean,
Yeah.
today we had a little spit, you know? Like
Right.
it's the way it
It
is.
I think it comes from that place of radical acceptance within, where you don't try to change them or you try to impose your will on them, and
Yeah.
you just agree, and it flows better this way, right?
It makes life so much easier when you can do that. We,
And
we
it's,
can't do it moment to moment. We keep trying, but
so back to this movement of turning around to look at your parents and honor them. If all constellations achieved in our mass culture was that movement, I think that alone would be tremendously healing, right?
absolutely. And the reason for that is the only way we can get the energy of love that comes through all of our ancestors has to come through our parents. So if we cut off that energy from our parents, we cut off the energy of all of our ancestors.
Yeah.
And you want that energy from the source of life to come through. And the only way you can get it is to honor your parents. And
Yeah.
people say to me, I can't honor my father. He was abusive to me. Well, you only honor him for giving you life. The Ten Commandments say, honor thy mother and thy father. They don't say you have to love them. They don't say
Exactly.
you have to like them. You honor them because he's your father and he gave you life.
But that is such an important difference, and it took a while for me to understand it. And it
Yes.
makes a once you get it, it's a burden off. It's a huge weight off your shoulders, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yes.
friend of ours that's watching, Mark from California, and he's just making a comment that says forgiveness includes forgiving self as well as forgiving others, right? Guilt and rancor.
Yes. And if you think about it, it's agreeing to who you are as a human being, that you're a wonderful spark of the divine, just the way you are. And
Right.
so it's accepting yourself. You know?
And there's all of these movements that we do in our life as attempts to reconnect with our parents when we are acting in some way disconnected, or that we haven't found in our hearts a place to include them because we have resentments and all of these things. And one of the things that I learned from studying with you and constellations is that when there is this spiritual quest in our lives to seek spirituality, that in fact we are really seeking a connection with our father of origin, our dad,
Yes.
right? And in addition to that, and this is the part that really threw me off, is Bert says if you are facing a challenge like a disease, and instead you seek a spiritual path, you miss the point.
Exactly. Because
Could you
that's your
say a little
teacher.
more about that?
Yes.
Yes, that was
Yes.
incredible, earth
Yes.
shattering when I read it.
Yes. And for me as well, because I was a spiritual seeker, you know, I was looking. I went through my nightstand had books on it that were in every Native American and every type of spiritual um, teachings that I could find. And the moment that I met Bert Hellinger and had some of these realizations and turned and accepted my parents just the way they are, not the way I wanted them to be, just the way they are, I stopped seeking. I was going from here to there, every workshop, every spiritual teacher that I could go see and have them put their hands on me or whatever. And as soon as I connected with both my mother, but especially my father, because I had it within already. I had that connection already, but it came through my ancestors all the way back to the source of life through my parents.